hope all of you have had a good lunch and are warm enough back for the second leg of panels that we have today on the India Economic Conclave. Mr. Piramal, always a pleasure having you, and welcome to New Delhi, cold as it may be.
Thank you. Actually, it's very pleasant.
Yeah.
And you know, people talk a lot about pollution in Delhi.
Yeah.
I found it very good today, at least.
Yeah, because Bombay is getting as polluted. But tell me, I wanted to ask you, it's been a very hectic wedding season for you. I've always wondered, how do you get that energy for so many wedding festivities and all the clothes changes and everything that goes with it?
In India, the wedding season starts now, I think, so I'm still to experience it.
Okay, but tell me, is the economy of our country, is it looking as charged up? And does it seem like we could make it to that top 3 position anytime soon?
I think we are well on our way to get into the top 3, whether it will be 2028, whether it will be 2029, doesn't matter, but the direction is right. And who is ahead of us? Today we are the 5th, as you know. To get to the 3rd, you have to get ahead of Germany and Japan. And though they have done well in the past, but today, I think India stands at several advantages. The average age of Japan is like 54 years. Our average age is 27 years. You can make out the difference. And ours is a young, vibrant economy, willing and wanting to do much more than any other country. I mean, when I travel abroad, I was in Japan recently, in Europe, you don't get the same energy and you don't get the same positivity. People are happy with this sort of life they have. It's a good life and no desire to go up further.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like someone said that Japan is an old age home and Europe is a, tourism country, all of it. But anyway, since you did talk about Japan and Germany, I wanted to talk about how your early days were. You started off from the textile industry, which was your family business, and you first moved into pharmaceuticals. Now, we all know where Indian pharmaceuticals stand, and we have the wherewithal to compete with a lot of global giants and make it to the #1 position. Tell me, where do you think the Indian industry is right now when it comes to pharma specifically, and what more can be done so that pharma can be that one leapfrog sector which can take us to the #3 position?
The pharma industry in India has actually several advantages.
Yeah.
Today, in terms of generic formulations, we are already the largest in the world. I think everywhere it's accepted as high quality and a lower cost products. You see the number of plants which are owned by Indian companies which are FDA approved. As far as we are concerned, we also have large number of plants which are in the US, in the UK, and in India. And we find that that combination is the one that can make a significant difference, because still, especially in the very newer products, the products under patent or under still research and development, people want the pharma, the development industry to be close to them. And that's where America, to be there, has a big advantage. Especially now when you see that there is clearly a movement towards diversifying their production from China. I think India has a significant scope to grow. We have to do more in terms of developing early stage APIs. We have to do more in terms of getting into more complex products. But I think that is on the way now.
The other thing I also wanted to talk about was financial services in particular. Considering your group's expansion also into this particular sector with Piramal Capital and Housing Finance, what strategies do you think India can adopt for more and more financial inclusion? Because financialization is pretty much the backbone for us to make it to the top 3 mark.
You're absolutely right. If we have to achieve the GDP growth rate that we are wanting to reach to the number 3 position, I think if you have to grow at 7-8% in real terms, and if I add another 4 or 5% in terms of inflation, so the economy needs to grow nominally at almost 13%. That means the financial sector normally needs to grow 1.5 times. So 18% growth in financial sector is important. Till now, the best that we've done over a period of time is 15-16% growth. So this additional growth that we need is where an NBFC can play a very important role. More so when you said that to reach the last mile, it's difficult for a bank to do it. And that's where NBFCs also can play a role. And therefore, I think we need to see that NBFCs also continue to grow along with banks. One of the things that we need for NBFCs to do is, today if you see the upper layer NBFCs are regulated a lot more than what they were previously and almost similar to banks. So I think it's important to get NBFCs to give the upper tier fewer, whatever NBFC they want to have a higher norm to get public deposit taking licenses. No licenses have been given. I think public deposits from probably in the early 2000 was the last time. So if that is given, then the availability of funds with NBFCs will be more, and then they can go further on into areas which cannot be covered by banks. It's impossible. India is too large a country. It's too large a population. So I think that's one way that we should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I guess loosening up the sector a little bit may actually help with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I also wanted to talk about, since you're here in the capacity as the chairman of your group, real estate and the kind of multiplier effect that real estate has on the rest of the economy, and more so job creation at the very grassroots level. Wanted to talk about how you see India building up real estate, and I'm not talking Mumbai specific, but more at a country level, and tier 2 and 3 cities as well. The kind of development that's happening there. What kind of impact can real estate have on the overall economy?
As you said, that the real estate is a key to any
Absolutely.
economy. And more so in India, I think the importance of real estate is much more, because there are many, many people who are aspiring to live a better life. And even the Prime Minister, if you've seen, has launched the Awas Yojana, which is to give the low-income people housing. I think so real estate is important to see that people get a better life. A lot of industries are dependent upon real estate, whether it is the steel, whether it is cement, whether it is paints, carpentry. Lot of employment is done. So I think it just needs more and more push. I believe that the regulations must become even more transparent. Even today, in spite of a lot of freedom given, or let's say ease of doing business, I think real estate still is not as transparent as it should be. It's pretty opaque, and especially in the larger cities, it is much more, leaves a lot to discretion of people. So we have to, take it. We've been talking about it for a while. I think it needs to be done.
Absolutely. So what more are we going to hear from Piramal Realty? What more can we hear from your real estate stable of your own company?
So our focus is more into, as far as the development is concerned, it is more into the Mumbai and the MMR area. I think our bigger play in that sense is also in funding of affordable housing in our NBFC. So in terms of on a monthly basis in affordable housing, like giving loans of between 15, 17 lakhs, we are the largest player today. So I think for that, it's important for any individual to have a house, and that's what we try to do.
Absolutely. I wanted to talk about in your years of experience and your entrepreneurial journey. I mean, given that at your group you have exposure to healthcare, to pharma, to real estate, where is it that you think that the lead is going to come in from? And where is it that you would want to now perhaps diversify in or concentrate more in when it comes to your own group businesses?
See, fortunately for us, both in the financial services and pharma, these are high growth industries. As we've said in the beginning, if India has to get into the top 3 in the world, it's absolutely critical that financial services grows, and there has to be different types of financial institutions, whether it's banks, whether it is NBFCs, alternative funding, insurance, all these have to grow together. So there is immense scope in it. Obviously, the more and more these are regulated industries, so you have to follow whatever the regulations may be. But I think that's where I see that there's a huge scope. Pharma, we have all these advantages as a nation to build pharmaceuticals, and you can't do without. As the world is aging, as more and more new drugs are coming in, again, pharma is a high growth industry. It has been, and these are industries where we've had a good track record, and I feel confident that we can do it. On the way, we will see many other places as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what are the other budding sectors? Someone was making a point in the panel previously before the lunch session that India has most amount of food platform accounts, all your Zomatos, etc. Lesser than that are the OTT numbers, and lesser than that are the demat accounts. So we know which way this new generation is actually migrating towards and what our consumption pattern is. What are the new sectors that you think are going to be most exciting in the future?
I think the good thing as far as India is, and in a growing economy like this is concerned, there are so many sectors, and whichever sector you touch, it's not the sector, but it's how you deal innovatively in each one that can give you enough opportunities. So finance is as old as, probably the oldest sector in the world, in history, but you can still keep getting innovation as we are seeing. So I would say that there are several such sectors.
Absolutely. You talked about India's demographics and how that's something very big which is in our favor. Where do you think the next leap of innovation is going to come in from? And will it have to be technology driven?
I just want to talk one thing about India's demography. We all talk about is at a strength, and it is a strength. But we must look at India as actually there are 3 Indias. Today, one is the really affluent India, which out of, say, the 1.4 billion people would be about 60 million people. The next is the sort of middle income India, 1.2 billion. And about 200 million people in India are the ones which are really where there is a lot of poverty. So if I was to draw a line from north to south, which was to divide India, leave the southernmost parts, but till Andhra Pradesh, parts of Andhra Pradesh also, you'll find that that is the most deprived part of India, where there is the difference in per capita income in this part of India, and the rest of India is 2.2 times that of this part. And therefore, if we have to get the real demographic dividend, I think we have to look at these. So the states like, whether it is Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, these are the ones which are Assam, Bengal, these are the ones which are really challenged. And it is necessary for us to see that their GDP also grows up so that India can really get into equitable distribution of wealth, and we continue on this path of becoming the 3rd largest.
So what do you think can be done to try and bring up those states?
I think we just need to give much more attention. I've seen over the past few years, actually, the government has increased their spending a lot in the social sector. Today, the government spends almost 50 lakh crores in these sectors of education, health, water, and other social activities. If I was to say the initial first line, I think whether it's in availability of medicines, availability of hospitals, availability of schools, all that has improved significantly. But it is the middle layer. Once these investments have been made, how do you actually effectively see to it that it reaches the last mile is what we need to see. And I think that's where even our own foundation is working towards that, so that there is more effective use of this. Secondly, I think it's important for all of us to recognize, and more so in the private sector, that these parts of the country also need attention. I'll give you an example. In 2017, the Prime Minister identified 112 aspirational districts in the country. These are districts which are much behind in all indices, whether it is the Sustainable Development Goals, whether it's the Human Development Index, per capita was much lower than rest. But unfortunately, nobody till now was paying attention till the Prime Minister identified. I'll give you an example. The CSR contribution, this part of India has about 15% of population. The CSR contribution in this was just 2% of the total. So I think these are the areas which, as really responsible citizens and as people who are here, who are actually all the people present and your viewers who are sensitive to what's happening, need to be much more aware and do something about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think more and more corporates who build on their CSR initiatives, that's going to really sort of reach at some point. And to add to the point that you were making, it's not just some of the backward states that you mentioned. What about the urban poor? We see that in the cities that we live in as well, that the divide is really, really huge. What more do you think can be done to try and uplift the urban poor? Because it's eventually a consumption-driven economy, yes, with a lot of technology boom as well as the backbone, but it's that large chunk which is going to consume and propel the economy forward.
So a lot of the urban poor is also because there is not enough employment opportunities in rural India. So people move from rural India into cities. So I think we have to again ensure that the rural India's development takes place. I think that is important. Also, it is important to get people to be more skilled so that they can go towards higher value jobs. So it's a combination, I think, but I would really, and you see a lot of people in urban India especially coming from these states which I talked about. So we must have them there in those states and try and lift their income.
Yeah, absolutely. You also talked about Delhi's pollution not being as bad, and I was only reminded of how bad Mumbai is right now. Sustainability. You think sustainability and, being ecologically sensitive, you think that's going to be a big focal point that India as a nation has to focus on, wherein corporates such as you will play an important part?
So, there's no question sustainability has to be important because you can feel the evidence of it on a daily basis. And climate change is going to affect, as they say, the marginal people much more. And we're seeing the effects of climate change. For instance, in India this year, if you see the last quarter, the GDP came down to 5.5%. A lot of it is also because of climate change. There were parts of India where there was too much rain. There were others where there was no rain. And all this, there's more heat, there's less heat. All this makes an effect on agriculture. It makes an effect on so many things. So climate change is important. But I just want to drive home again the point in sustainability. If you have to have sustainability in the country, you need to have people who get sustainable income, sustainable, and therefore please look at these states which I talked about in the East.
Absolutely. So we're here to talk about what India is going to be eventually in a few decades from now. I have to talk about your grandkids. How cute are they? What kind of India do you think they will grow up in, say, in the next 15 years? Krishna and Adia.
So I have 4 grandchildren.
Yes.
So I need to, so they're all, I think...
The ones more in the media glare.
Yes, that's why I just wanted to, my daughter has 2, and so does my son have 2. So I think they will definitely grow into a better India. I can see that. It'll be an India. Already I see the change from when I was young till today. Here is an India which is much more confident. Indians don't feel that they are second-class citizens to any country. The amount of respect today an Indian gets when he or she travels abroad, you can feel it. You can see that the best companies, the leaders of the world want to come to India to associate with India. So I think India, with its solid, I think the value system of India is not going to change. It is there, and we are blessed to have that. And then you have a confident India in India which can play a key role in shaping the world to be a better place is what I see it. And as my grandchildren grow, I think they will all contribute, as all Indians will, to this.
Of course, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause, please, for Mr. Ajay Piramal. Thank you so much for your time today.